and share the screen all over again. Okay, great. You see me? You see it?
Yes.
Yep, we see
Awesome.
it. See it. Yep.
Okay, so I named this webinar When Loving Hurts. I think all of us can relate to the fact that you had good intentions, you meant well, but that did not exempt you from getting hurt or getting betrayed. Is that fair to say? I guess I'm gonna be the one talking. I'm so used to doing the interactions here, and I don't see. Okay, okay. So in this webinar, these are the things that I'm going to try to discuss. I'm gonna discuss what is codependency, what causes it, what does it look like in relationships, how do you start caring about yourself if you're in a codependent pattern, how do you get out of it? And then if you guys have any questions and answers that you may want me to address, that they'll be at the time that I will present that. And then I'm gonna introduce you to the upcoming class that I have coming up in March. It's in February, sorry, late February. If you want to participate in that codependency group, I'll give you an option of what that would look like. So a lot of us have learned to survive in life. And I think sometimes we don't even think of it like we are surviving because we are so used to doing the things that we do and we think that that is normal. But a lot of us are so used to surviving and we don't know how to live life. So the concept of living is very foreign, but we are not even aware that that's what's happening because we are just surviving. And so in this webinar, one of the things that we want to do is to see, are we surviving? Are we thriving? And what does that look like? So all of us registered something in that email, whatever you received, resonated with you, and you decided, I want to be a part. I'm curious about this. And I know that all of us are in different relationships, whether it's a marital relationship, a sibling relationship, a work relationship. All of us are, to some degree, are in some form of relationship. And if you have one that stands out for you that is most troubled, as we go through this webinar, I just want you to look through that lens of that troubled relationship so you could see some of the tendency that you may have or may not have, okay? And so a lot of us have been searching for ways to overcome these dilemmas of the conflicts that we find in these relationships, whether again, it's a parental relationship, marital, family, whatever the dynamic is. We're trying to find ways to overcome these dilemmas that are coming from these relationships, or even some of it is coming from our childhoods, but we don't know where sometimes this is coming from. So a lot of us, we are raised in families where addictions existed, and some of us, we are not. So I think when the term codependency comes in, it's much easier to easily see through addiction behavior. When there is an addiction to some substance, it's easy to see codependent behaviors. But when there is no addiction, sometimes you don't see it. So it ends up like codependency is one of the most deeply rooted compulsive behavior that is born out of our sometimes moderately or extremely dysfunctional family systems. And I don't know, a lot of people don't study their family systems that they are coming from. Some of them are extremely dysfunctional, but that is what is normal. Some people come from moderately dysfunctional family structures, but they don't know what that would look like. So as you're discovering yourself, sometimes it's healthy to understand what type of family system you're coming from. So all of us have experienced painful trauma of the emptiness of our childhood and relationships throughout our lives. And when we use the word trauma, some people go to the extremities of it, where it's either sexual violence or gun violence or rape. And many times it's not even just only that trauma, but sometimes we have what we call attachment wounding, right? Where the needs that you needed to have been made as a child were not made. So you kind of were left with unhealed wounds. And so it will be considered trauma with a small t. So a lot of us have attempted to use others. We may not think of it like that. We use others, our mates, our friends, and even sometimes our children as a sole source of our identity our value, our well-being, or as a way of trying to restore within us the emotional losses from our childhoods. Again, for example, if a person needed to be validated as a child and they never got that, they found a way to identify themselves without having that need met. And sometimes they become too important to other people. They decide, I'm not going to need anyone. And so they become the ones others need because they never got that need met as a child. So they decided, I don't need anyone. And now they are meeting the needs of other people. So we don't realize that sometimes it is an attempt of us trying to find a way to restore the emotional losses that we experienced in our childhood. Okay. Now I'm gonna kind of give a break. If anyone has any questions, any comments in the meantime, just I don't know if I'm able to even see the chat room if I wanted to, but just type them in the comment section, I mean in the chat room. When I get to the Q&A, I'll be able to respond to them. So what is a family system? So when you think about systems, every family has a system. So you may not have probably thought about your family to have a system, but a system is a collection of interconnected parts or elements that work together, following specific rules or relationships to form a unified whole that functions to achieve a common purpose or goal, often exhibiting behaviors greater than the sum of its individual components. So if we're to use a person who grew up as let's say the very responsible one, the firstborn child usually takes on that responsibility. The structure has been designed that when things go wrong, everybody goes to that person without realizing this person is always carrying the family problems as a system. For the family to function, this person takes on the role of responsibilities. And unfortunately, in some situations, some people never learn to take ownership of what they do because they are so used to dumping their responsibilities on other people. So it's fair for you to identify the type of structure or the type of system your family was and what role do you play in that system to understand your behaviors. Now, have you ever had any of these thoughts when you think about that relationship or situation you're in that you feel helpless with, where you think of it, you have these thoughts. If he or she changed, everything will be all right, you know? Why is she being stubborn? Why is he being stubborn? If she can just do this, then everything will be fine. Even if whether it's your child or it's your parent, whatever that relationship may be. Or sometimes some people feel like I can't control this pain, these people, or what is happening. In other words, you feel defeated, you feel stuck, you know, you don't know what to do because you don't have control of the situation, but you're in pain, but you don't know how to stop it. And some people feel like when things go wrong, it's always their fault, you know? No matter what the other person does, it always boils down to it's always my fault. I should have known better. I should have done differently. I should have, should have mastered these things already. So it's always their fault. And some people have noticed patterns of betrayal, patterns of being taken advantage of, patterns of being lied to, and it's just like a pattern in your relationship, and you kind of feel like you have something on your forehead that when people come to you, that's what they see before anything else, and so you feel stuck in a bad relationship. And now sometimes people get to believe that this is their lot in life. This is what maybe God has for me. I have to just suck it up and deal with it. Some people just feel empty and lost, or maybe you feel like that. You have these thoughts that you feel empty, you feel lost, and you don't know who you are, and you're questioning what is wrong with you as if you signed up for it, that something must be wrong with me because I don't know why I'm always in these situations that I'm in, right? So codependency, it's this sadness from those thoughts that we have, right? That sadness of who am I or what is wrong with me? It's all my fault. That sadness that comes from those thoughts, that sadness and loss brings us into this codependent behavior because we don't know how to continue living like that. So we want change and we want it now, but we don't know where to start. So we know that there is misery and we want to escape it. If you're in a marriage or if it's a family situation, you feel stuck and you don't know how to get out of it. Sometimes we want to feel good about ourselves. We feel like we don't know how to be positive about ourselves. We only see ourselves as the problem, what is wrong with me. There's nothing good about ourselves, and we want to see something good about ourselves, but sometimes we just don't know where to start. We want to live lives that are abundant and fulfilling, that we feel like we have a purpose of why we are here. We're not just here to exist, but there is a reason why we are here. But we don't know how to get there. We all want to have happy and healthy relationships. I don't think that there is anyone that has never experienced a horrible relationship, because there is a saying that we get wounded in relationships, but we also get healed in relationships. But when you've been through patterns of betrayal, that trauma can cause you to give up on relationship and just feel like, you know what, I'll just be by myself. I don't care for friends. I don't care for relationships in couples. I don't care about my family. And you feel like you become a loner, and those are some realities that people experience when you go through like a series of betrayal, series of bad relationships. It kind of puts a bad taste in your mouth and you don't know how not to see like that. So if you're feeling like this anywhere in your life, or you've ever experienced that, you're not alone in this sadness and despair and depression, because we all get wounded in relationship, but we also heal in relationships. So we kind of don't have a choice but to heal, but it's that, where do we start? So what is codependency, right? It's an emotional, psychological, and behavioral condition. Again, there's emotions involved, there's psychological mindsets involved, there is behavioral um, habits that are involved, right? It's an emotional, psychological, and behavioral condition that develops as a result of an individual's prolonged exposure to and practice of a set of oppressive rules, right? So if you're in a relationship where you feel like you don't have the freedom to be you, you're gonna feel like you're being oppressed. Now, these rules are the ones that prevent us from being able to openly express our feelings, as well as the direct discussion of personal or interpersonal problems. So if you grew up in a home where your parents raised you to be it's their way or the highway, you don't feel like you're able to express your personal problems to them, because if they don't get what they want from you, whatever you have is of no relevance. So by default, you kind of learn to keep things to yourself because that's what you learned, right? So originally it was used to describe person or persons, the word codependency, right? Whose lives were afflicted as a result of their being involved with someone who was chemically dependent, right? So when they're coming up with clinical terms, they kind of do like studies to make sense of what is happening. So when they were dealing with substance abuse, they observed behaviors that were outside of the person who was using the substance, and they started to see the patterns of behavior being the same, that the person who wasn't using the substance started to behave in certain ways. So that's when they started to realize that even if the other person is depending on a substance, this person has now given up their lives to make sure that the person who is using is also okay, right? So it's kind of twisted. It comes from good intentions, but sometimes it doesn't work out right. A codependent person is the one whose life becomes unmanageable. Now, you may feel like I've been the one being betrayed. I've been the one that is being taken advantage of. How is my life being unmanageable? Right? These are things that we don't necessarily think about, because sometimes we look at it from the pain of hurt, the perspective of hurt and pain. We feel like people have done these things to us, but we don't know how we signed up for it because we don't remember having registered for it, but here we are. A person who has let another person's behavior affect him or her, and who is obsessed with controlling that person's behavior. So when they were doing substance abuse, for example, or substance use, usually, like if you put it in a parent-child relationship, for those of you who have children, you could see, especially if you're a mother, your heart goes out to your child. You do anything for your child. To watch your child wasting away, you feel like there is something that can be done, right? So that other person is not necessarily thinking about you, but consistently thinking about your child. And now you start to lose your sense of self because now your mind is wrapped up in how you're going to help him or her, how are you going to prevent him from self-destruction and all that stuff. So now you lose your own life over here, and your life is basically starting to be controlled by the other person's behavior. Now, it's very easy to see this when it's like a substance involved, but when there is no substance, you care about this person. This is your spouse, this is your friend, this is your colleague at work. So, what is wrong? It should be fixed, right? So, when there is a substance there, it's much easier to see the codependent behavior. But when there is no substance, sometimes that's where we get stuck because we feel like we could do something about it. Okay. Some people say it's an illness, that codependency is a disease. Some people don't say that it's true, but it's a normal reaction to abnormal people, right? Of course, when you see someone who is using a substance, you want to help them, right? But you're reacting to something that is not normal, right? Using substances is not something that we should consider as normal, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. So it's a normal reaction. You care, you understand, you are empathetic, you want something to change, but you're reacting to something that is not normal, right? Others say it's a disease because it's chronic and it's progressive. So once you start to engage in this behavior, it's not like once you help the person, let's say, who is using, and then once you help them, they'll be fixed and you'll be fine. No, you start to it becomes almost like addictive, right? The more they use, the more you help. The more they use, the more you help. So you think about your relationship that let's say that you're being troubled with, as you see whatever they are doing and how you're participating in helping them, you being sucked into it where it becomes now chronic. That's why some people spend so much time in it without realizing that it's not good, because your intentions are good, but you're applying good intentions to a wrong situation. And it's not easy sometimes to identify that. So they suggest that codependents want sick people around them to be happy in an unhealthy way. So when you go back into thinking of a parent with a child, you want the best for your child, but at the same time, it's in an unhealthy way, right? That if a child is using, let's say, alcohol, you making sure that they get home safely is not helping them stop using alcohol, right? So people who are codependent, sometimes they say they want sick people around them to be happy, but they do it in an unhealthy way, right? So I'm gonna play this clip for you guys, and I want you to tell me as you watch it. Now, if you are sensitive to addiction, this is gonna involve some form of addictions.
Thousands of women have reversed hair loss in Crete.
So bear with that commercial. Okay, so we're going back to the video.
Okay. We had
Let me go back here.
start using together right away. We had a year together sober. That's holding us together to this day, is knowing that we can go back to that. My name is Spencer. I'm 23 years old and I'm addicted to heroin and meth.
My name's Kristen. I'm 30 and I'm addicted to heroin and meth. Spencer and I met living next door to each other. I was instantly attracted to him.
For me, Kristen, in a lot of ways, is my best friend. We get along perfectly.
It's great to have Spencer around. He's a very, very positive person. And that's good because I've usually been a very negative person.
I definitely consider Kristen and I to be in a codependent relationship. We like to think that we're independent, but I can't seem to do anything without her. She can't seem to do anything without me. We have big plans. And this addiction thing is so in the way of it.
Really messing him up.
Kristen and Spencer are every parent's worst nightmare in the sense that their families provided the most loving and supportive upbringing possible. And addiction happened anyway.
I had a really good childhood. I had like the perfect family. I hate that my addiction and my actions have put so much stress on my family.
After my mom died, my grandmother took us on. She became our guardian. My grandma is like my favorite person in the world. She's tried so hard to love me, to do for me, to provide for me.
I worked 39 years because I wanted to have a good retirement. That's gone. Your addiction has robbed me. And I want that stopped.
One of the most difficult things about telling the truth is sitting in the silence when it falls upon the other person.
I'm at a critical point where I'm either going to go this way or that way, and whichever way I choose has consequences.
Your daughter has no fight, no passion, no nothing. Let her go fight for herself.
I'm at my breaking point. I can't keep doing this any longer.
They say what we want to hear to make us feel better, and then they go out and do whatever they want.
If we don't get sober, I see just a lot of misery and death, probably. I don't even know.
So,
Okay, listen, if you're in a business that make,
give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna come back to you guys. In that clip, who would you say was the codependent one? Which one would you say was codependent?
I feel like the guy was the one who right away even said, I can't do anything without her.
Right.
But then I guess she feeds off of it and gets her fix of I feel good. And she has validation. I guess. I don't know.
Right. Right. Yeah, he's codependent. Who else was codependent? Anybody want to share?
I think they both are to a certain extent because he even admitted that he's at a crossroads and
Mhm.
he either going to go to the positive side or negative side. So he at least is identifying where he's at. But I think they both are codependent overall.
Mhm. How about the grandmother? Is she or not?
Yeah, she is for depleting her savings and stuff, trying to save her grandson. She's definitely supporting his habit, although she loves him and wants the best.
Right. So you see, codependency can come in different forms, right? It can show up differently. It doesn't like it's easy to see when the person is addicted to a drug, but it's not easy to see like in the grandmother. She has good intention, she wants to help out, but the help is not fixing it. So is it really helping or it's not helping, right? So I'm gonna go back. So as again, when you think about your situation, think about the dynamics of it, okay? So these are some things that you would like to know about codependence, okay? I think all of us to some degree have a sense of some form of codependence. It may not be as strong as other people, but we all have those tendencies to some degree. So you want to see which one is yours. When you are codependent, how does it usually manifest, right? So some things you want to know about codependent behavior is like by nature, codependents are very concerned about and they are responsive to the needs of the world or even others. They are not people who just sit by and just watch people destroy themselves. They want to do something about it. As you see, good intentions, right? They are the ones that fight for social justice and the rights of the underdog. They would die for the cause and still think that they didn't do enough. You know, you get in a bad relationship and you do everything that you want, that you feel like there is everything to do, you do it. And when you break up, you still feel guilty that you didn't do enough. You were the one with the problem. You could have been able to figure it out. You should have been able to know how to fix it. But because you did not, and you had to break up, then you're the problem, right? So by nature, they are very concerned and they are responsive to the needs of others. The other thing about codependence is that they are reactionaries. They tend to overreact, underreact, but they rarely do act, right? As you can see with a grandmother, right? She's reacting to the grandson's behavior. And even when you think about like that short little clip, if you go into each individual, like the girl and the guy, their family structures of how they end up using that behavior did not happen in a vacuum, right? Again, they grew up in a like the girl, she grew up in a healthy home. They gave her everything that she felt like she grew up she had a good childhood. But where did that come from? So that's where you kind of put a bigger picture to see the generations behind what this family system looks like to understand where this came from. Yes, sometimes it could be coming from that, but sometimes it's just a person's choice, right? Some people go through traumatic experiences and their inability to cope, they tend to gravitate to unhealthy behaviors, right? But it's fair to always look at the bigger picture from the family perspective, right? So codependents, they rarely act. They over or underreact, but they rarely act. What does that mean? They react to problems, to pains, and the lives and behaviors of others. I'm not gonna let you kill yourself. I'm gonna do something about it. They react to it. Or sometimes I don't know what to do with a situation. I'm just gonna continue to be in this situation because I don't know what to do. They react to their own problems, pains, and the behaviors, right? Some react to the stress and uncertainty of living or growing up with alcoholism and other problems. So, like if you grew up with a parent who was addicted to any form of substance, you learn to react to that. You know, you learn what to do, not to get yelled at, or you learn what to do, not to go through the violence, whatever the coping mechanism may be, that you learn to do that as a way to survive. But some people react to people destroying themselves, and this reaction is what destroys them. You see, the grandmother's savings and retirement wiped out because she was reacting to her grandson's addictive behavior, right? So codependents also have a tendency to self-destruct. That behavior of helping can be habitual. The habits repeat without thinking, which end up taking their own lives, you know. Whatever problem the other person has, the codependency involves a habitual system of thinking, feeling, and behaving towards self and others, and it causes pain, right? You believe that if I don't help, this person is gonna die. You believe that if I don't do something, this is what's gonna happen. There is a way of thinking, so it becomes a habitual way of thinking, but it's in a systematic way. This leads to that, and that leads to that, and this leads to that, and therefore I cannot do anything, you know? They say, I'm bound to doing this. I don't know how not to do it, right? And also they tend to find themselves in destructive relationships, right? So for some people who have experienced betrayal as a pattern, right? You don't realize that sometimes you find yourself with habits, but you may not have thought about your own personal habits. The habits that lead us into destructive relationships that may have otherwise worked in other healthy relationships. If you're a caregiver and you know that you love caring about people, there is no reason why you're consistently drawing yourself to people who are consistently needy. That's not a good combination, right? So you're always picking up people who are needy, knowing that you are always the giver. You're the one who is always helping out. So even if that's a good trait, the combination of relationships you get are gonna drain you and strain you. So these behaviors keep us in destructive relationships that don't work. These behaviors can sabotage relationships that may have otherwise worked. And they prevent us from finding peace and happiness with the most important person in our lives, which is ourselves. It's kind of like we are running from ourselves without even realizing it. You're so focused on helping others that you end up losing yourself in the process. Okay. So what does it look like in relationships? This is the patterns. So you may not be the one who shows up in denial. You may show up in controlling patterns. You may show up in low self-esteem patterns or compliance patterns. I'm not going to read all of them, but I'm going to do the denial and maybe control and compliance a little bit, not all of them. When you are in relationships and you ask a person, how do you feel? I don't know, right? That inability to know how you're feeling is not a good thing. It's your responsibility to identify your feelings. If you let other people identify feelings for you, you're putting yourself in a predicament where you can be in a codependent situation. And for most of you, you have taken your temperaments. So if a choleric temperament person is in a relationship with a supine temperament is one that tends to follow and not lead, and they tend to feel faster than they think. So they need time to process what they are feeling before they can articulate what they are thinking. So if you're in a relationship with someone who is constantly easily thinking as opposed to easily feeling, then you're gonna find it difficult to easily express your feelings to this person because they don't even give you an opportunity to identify what you're feeling. So that's a different dynamic. But people with a supine tendency supine temperament have a tendency to fall into codependent behaviors of helplessness. They feel like they are victims. They don't know what to do. They feel stuck. They feel like the other person has all the power because they refuse to identify what they feel. And even other people, so people who struggle with identifying how they feel, they also have a difficulty seeing what they are doing to contribute to the problem because they feel like it's the other person with a problem. They are fine. They're just in their logic. And in their logic, there are no feelings. Everything is fine. So you can reason with them till the cows come home. But if they don't understand how they feel, you're going to kill yourself with this. Okay. People who tend to minimize or alter or deny their feelings, they tend to find themselves in denial patterns of codependency. Or some people who perceive themselves to be as completely unselfish, dedicated to the well-being of others. They are very kind. As you can see, they want to save the world, right? And that desire to help that doesn't have boundaries, they call it, sometimes they use that word, unsanctified mercy. You show mercy to people who actually need to take some form of responsibility, but you don't give it to them because you care for them. You're not a selfish person. You want to help. But then you don't know how to get out of it because the person you're helping, it's been 10 years and they are still doing what they were doing when you met them. So that's not good. And so that's denial patterns. Some people tend to find themselves in controlling patterns of codependency. Those are easy sometimes also to see. These people tend to believe that mostly others are incapable of taking care of themselves. But if I can be the one to help you, you'll figure it out. I'll help you figure it out. You'll be fine. And sometimes even when people come to therapy where you're being tricked into making them believe that they cannot do it, they can suck you into being codependent with them. So even as clinicians, we are very careful not to become codependent clinicians because that would be like one of the worst relationship pattern you would ever want, because now you have the position of power and this person is coming to you as a helpless person and they are tricking you into believing that without you, they cannot do anything. And that's not true. You want to equip them so that they could do better. A person with a controlling pattern of codependency is mostly almost attempting to convince others that they should think how they should think or feel. If you just do it kind of the my way or the highway attitude, and then they become resentful when others refuse their offers of help. If I'm going to help you, you're basically going to do it on my terms. And if you don't do it, then I'm going to resent you because I wanted to help you, but you didn't want to take it. And let me touch a little bit of low self-esteem. Having difficulty making decisions. I don't know what I want. I don't know what to do. They can bait you into believing that stuff, and this is where we get paid because you believe it. You believe that this person is having a hard time making decision, and that's not true. You have to let them get to that place to make that decision that they want, because they'll bait you into believing that you're going to make the decision for them. And once you make it, then they resent you for it. So it never works. But now you want to see, especially as you're screening through some of the relationship dynamics that you're in, what is going on? Am I the one in the controlling pattern, or I'm in relation with a person with so low self-esteem patterns? Because the challenge is you don't want to take on responsibilities for others that is not for you to carry. That's what sucks us into it. The person convinces you that they are not able to ask others to help. They don't know how to ask for help, right? So it all falls on their shoulders and they don't know what to do. It's a lot, So be mindful of those things. And then we have the compliance patterns, right? Where you compromise your values, your integrity to avoid rejection and other people's anger. People-pleasing behavior almost, right? I can't afford for them to be mad at me, so I'm going to just comply and get it out of the way. And for men, a lot of men tend to do this in marriages. They comply just to get rid of the whole situation. I don't want to go into conflict. I don't want to argue with you. I'll just let it slide. But then you become resentful. And many times this is where people tend to cheat on other people because they comply you comply to the other person's behavior, you don't want to deal with it. And then by default, that person becomes like your enemy, So for the guys out there, be careful that you don't fall for this, because they tend to easily fall for the compliance, especially in relationships. Some people place higher value on others' opinions and feelings and are afraid to express differing viewpoints or feelings, especially in a marital relationship. Conflicts are part of relationships. Avoiding conflict is not a good thing. We have to deal with it. So we need to deal with it in a healthy way, right? Again, for those of you that may have questions, put them in the chat room. When I'm done with this, you'll be able to, I'll respond to them. So how do we start healing? Where do we start? We start by acknowledging, because sometimes it's not easy to give it up. As you see, you're doing noble things. It's not like you're doing bad things. You're helping other people. But as we're doing that, sometimes we don't realize that we are not facing ourselves. So we need to acknowledge the feelings of pain, so that those feelings of pain is what helps us, that motivates us to change, Then we learn to become our own dear companions on our journey. Since we have lived to survive through others, if I don't help you, what's going to happen to me? So now I have to learn to deal with me, whether you're here or not, that I'll be okay. Because for some reason we buy into the lie, in order for me to be okay, you have to be okay. And sometimes it's not black and white like I'm saying it right now. It's very nuanced. And so that's why people feel stuck. So for some people, they find pain to be a gift, a gift. Because those feelings of pain and emptiness and despair is what motivates them to change, because I cannot do this any longer, right? It's that desire that helps us. Then we have to learn to deal with this denial. We tell ourselves that we are doing a great job, we pat ourselves on the shoulders, but in reality, we are denying a part of ourselves, whether it's in the past or it's in the present. There is something that we are refusing to acknowledge because we are in denial. And denial is a form of, it could be a gift, it's not always bad. Sometimes when you're going through like a lot of trauma, denial could be like a holding place for you to brace yourself to face the truth. But when you start to live in a lifestyle of denial, then that's a problem, So it becomes a stumbling block. So you want to acknowledge, what is it about your past? Some people want to move on from the past, like the past never happened, but it's the past that is driving a lot of people's behaviors, right? So if you don't deal with the past, it's going to keep coming up to you in the present. So you want to learn to acknowledge these areas so that you could be honest. You're not dealing with denial. And then you also have to recognize, when it comes to acceptance, recognize that your denial is a symptom of codependence and see it as a process that continually emerges, subsides, and evolves throughout your lives. So maybe when you are younger, you coped by complying, right? But you don't see it as a form of codependency. You just do whatever you're asked to do because you don't want to get into trouble. When you get out of that denial and accept that, okay, I'm codependent, but in that denial behavior of complying, or I'm always complying as a way to cope. Once I accept that I do that, right? Then you're going to learn that in every relationship that you're gonna go in, you're very vulnerable to easily fall into that trap unless you're mindful. Don't take it for granted, right? It's kind of like when you see people who are struggling with substances. So some people, let's say, who are doing alcohol, once they get out of drinking and they are healing through it, they know which places not to go to. They're like, if I start drinking, I know I won't stop. So I don't go to bars, right? So if you're a type of person who is always complying in relationships, don't make friends with people who are going to consistently bully you. You have to be able to see from a mile and know like, that's not for me. I don't want to put myself consistently in a situation where I'm complying. And especially if you've tried to make it work and the other person is not getting out of that bullish behavior, then you have to be honest with yourself that this is not going to work for me. Otherwise, you're going to be drawn back into that behavior of complying, and then the codependency is going to show up again. So it's a consistent journey of evolving. As you grow, as you change, you learn that the way you show up is always going to be changing. And then the serenity prayer. This is, you mostly know this. Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. You found a person with the addiction of 25 years, and you think that because you're in relationship with them, they're going to change. No, accept the things that you cannot change. That's not for you to carry, and you need to know that that is okay not to carry that. Otherwise, you're going to start putting yourself in stressful situations where you're not able to manage that. So this ability to accept what is in your control and what's not in your control will open the door for you to learn what is healthy way of managing stress, as opposed to take on things that are not for you to carry. So I'm inviting you, for those of you who are interested in joining my class. Is going to start next month on the 21st. It's a Saturday from 9 to 11. Well, anyone who is experiencing a series of betrayals, anyone feeling helpless about a relationship, maybe you've experienced some childhood trauma that you want to navigate, especially if you're noticing that you have codependency behavior, that you want to walk through that, you could be part of those people who can join that class. Any abusive relationship, whether with substance, spiritual, or physical, these are the things that you're going to learn in the group, right? You're going to learn to identify the root of your dysfunction in relationships. You're going to learn how you learn to turn your head down when you or others were neglected. When did you learn to put your head in the sand, right, and become helpless? You're going to learn who in your childhood displayed behaviors or instructed you not to tell or share your feelings about them. When did you learn not to share your feelings, right? You're going to learn that where did you learn how that avoiding others was a safer place than to being involved, that instead of dealing with conflict, it's safer not to engage, and all these other areas that you're going to learn in the group. And so these changes will be the ones that you'll be able to experience a new sense of belonging, where you're no longer feeling like you're complying, you're controlling, you're helpless, but you have a new sense of self, a new sense of belonging. You no longer be controlled by your fears. You're going to learn how to handle people who are bullying, people who are helpless. You're going to learn how to be in control, so that the fears are not going to be the one basically directing your behaviors. You're going to experience a new sense of freedom, a release from worry, guilt, and regret about your past and present. Sometimes we don't know how to deal with the past, and it sometimes may feel like it's a lot, and we don't want to go there. So we're just going to start afresh, but that's a lie. In order to understand your present, you have to examine the past. And you want to know a new love and acceptance of yourself and others. And you learn to see yourself as equal to others, and many other things. So you no longer need to rely on others as a power greater than yourself, whether you feel like you're helpless, or you're feeling like you're being controlled, or you feel like you have to comply. But you'll be able to understand, you'll be able to find that new strength within yourself to be who God created you to be, which is free and precious, right? So in the class, you'll be able to get a workbook with the class material. And the class starts on February the 21st at 9 to 11, and it ends on March 28th. It's 6 weeks, and it's a $500 fee. And there is a payment plan available for those of you who are interested in doing that. So now I'm going to kind of pause and go into the questions. If anyone had any questions, feel free to ask. Feel free to share your questions. Whoever feels like has a questions or comment. I'm opening up the chat room or unmute yourself so that if you have a question, you could ask whatever that is. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. I'm opening up the floor for questions and answers. I'll answer your questions, anyone who has questions, okay? Let's see. Anyone feels that they are in a codependent relationship? Don't be shy, guys. Anyone being betrayed? I know we've all felt betrayed. If you've never experienced betrayal. Okay, if you have questions, just type them. If you're not able to talk, just type them in the chat room. Just type them. I'll read them and I'll answer them. If you're not able to voice because you're in your office, just type them and I'll answer them.
Hi. I actually wanted to say thank you for doing this. I definitely see that from past childhood trauma and how some behaviors from that were learned,
Mhm.
believe from the past has been carried onto falling into relationships that are unhealthy, and how to stop those patterns.
Mhm.
That is something that I need help with.
Yeah.
And not pass it on to my daughters now. Like a generational, whatever. I don't know if you would call that generational curses or what. But just those unhealthy patterns, and not carry it on to my kids. So I really appreciate this.
Yeah, thank you for coming. Yeah. How do you tell the difference between a codependent relationship and just trying to love someone through a difficult time? A healthy relationship is mutual, right? So meaning that if you feel like you're the one carrying that weight all the time, right? And when you're helping someone through a difficult time, in a sense that I think somebody asked the question, how do you tell the difference between a codependent relationship and just trying to love someone through a difficult time? A difficult time does not last 10 years or 5 years, right? And also you have to be honest with yourself, right? Because if you already have a heart to help, like most people who are codependent, they really have a heart to help. They have good intentions, but they don't know how to set healthy boundaries. That's when they get sucked into it, right? And so for example, if I'm always helpless and I come to you because you're always helping me, because you're very kind, you're always helping me, and then you're used to it, like you have a hard time saying no to me when I ask you. If you're not being honest with yourself, it's gonna come and bite you at one point, because you can only do it for so far until it doesn't work anymore. So not knowing how to set boundaries, and healthy relationships are mutual. They are rooted in respect, right? If the person doesn't respect you, many times they will take advantage of you. And out of the kindness of your heart, you're gonna think, because I'm helping them, but the person you're helping is taking advantage of you, but you don't see like that because you don't respect yourself. And part of the reason why we don't respect ourselves is because we're never respected as kids. So we find value or respect by helping other people, right? That's what gives us value, because our parents did not respect us, or our family structures did not even see us as people. So we find value by taking care of everybody else, right? So when you show up in relationship, you don't even respect you because you don't know you. You don't sit with yourself. You don't sit with your discomfort, and to the most part, we all try to avoid uncomfortable emotions. Who wants to feel with rejection? You want to run from that thing like a plague, right? So instead of feeling rejection, you're going to help. Even when you know that person is taking advantage of you, you're going to consistently help, right? So if it's a difficult time does not last a lifetime either, right? Did I answer your question?
Yes.
Is this package available only to existing clients or new ones too? This is a class. You could register. It does have nothing to do with existing or new persons. It's just if what I've shared with you resonates with you and you want to be part of the class, you feel free to register. My website, let me see if I can put that link here. For those of you who may be interested in doing it here. Oops. And there is payment plans available for those of you who want to take advantage of the payment plan because there's a lot going on the planet. For those of you who need that, let me know. I'll also send you the link of that, you know. And I also have like a women's trauma group. We meet every 2 Mondays a month, the second and fourth Mondays of every month. For those of you who would like to be a part of it, I think that we deal with a lot of like knowing what your type of trauma is, whether it's child like safety like trauma or attachment wounding, because a lot of people don't know the difference between attachment wounding and trauma and trauma wounding, because the way you heal them is different. The way you heal trauma wounding is different from the way you heal attachment wounding. So if you don't know the difference between what your wounding is, you may not know how to heal in a healthy way because kind of healing the wrong, you're approaching it from a wrong place, you know. And we also help you to kind of learn how to deal with your family structure, understanding the type of family system that you were raised in so that you can understand the why behind your word, you know, because a lot of people are very responsible, you know, very responsible at a very young age. So that's the link for those of you who are interested in registering today. And I'm gonna put the other link for those who would like to use like a payment plan. Again, the class starts on February 21st. It's a Saturday at 9. It's gonna run for 6 weeks. You'll get a workbook in that class. And it's very interactive. So you'll be having to ask more questions. Let's see. Anybody else has any questions? Please feel free.
I
Don't be
have a
shy.
question. Hi, everyone. If we can't use the link today, is this also on the website?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, it is.
Or rather, I mean, if we can't, like, I'm driving now, so I won't be able to access the link at this moment, but I want to
Yeah,
be able to access it later. Thank you.
it's on the website. Yeah. Anybody else? Feel free, guys. We all struggle with codependent. Let me tell you, my personal experience is like I went through a season in my life of betrayals. They were like back to back. And I'm like, it does not take rocket science to figure that I'm doing something to contribute to this. Before I saw it, I thought I was a victim. And all these people are doing these things to me. You know, it's so easy to look at it like that. And my encouragement to you, whatever patterns you're noticing in your relationships, start to study yourself, understand the why behind what you do so that you could learn what is healthy so that you can equip yourself to do what is healthy. Because we are so, again, we come from family systems that are very different. You are the responsible one. Everybody comes to you. So you don't know how to turn it off. You don't even think it's okay to turn it off. And then people take advantage of you. And if you're a Christian, that's a whole nother thing. God wants you to carry this thing, you know? And let me tell you, even God himself, you know, he gives us permission to choose, you know? If you overstep God's boundaries, he's not going to force you in any way. You're going to suffer the consequences of overstepping that boundary, but he's not going to budge. He respects himself. So some of us don't respect ourselves, but we don't think of it like that. We just think of ourselves like we care so much, we are kind, we are loving. But if love is good, then why are you hurt by it? You know? What are the first steps towards healing codependency? Acknowledging what your wrongdoing is. Again, understanding your patterns of behavior is the first step, you know? If you don't know what you're doing, you just see what everybody else is doing wrong, you're not there yet. And sometimes because it's painful, it's not easy to admit to ourselves, you know? Tracy, do you have a question or a comment?
I was just going to make a comment. And I think last year I worked through some of it, realizing, within myself where codependency kind of came in for me. And I think one thing happened, and then when I went to counseling last year for the year, I realized how it affected everything else. And so I have in the last couple of months been practicing setting boundaries, like stronger boundaries
Yeah.
for myself. And that after I acknowledged, what, because sometimes it doesn't even, like, you don't know what it is,
Yeah.
but definitely stronger, taller boundaries and kind of sticking with it. But I think my problem was before I would set the boundaries and then feel bad that I did.
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
I don't. No
Yeah.
is no.
And that's the thing, boundaries are very hard for a lot of people. Very,
Yeah.
very hard, especially if you're kind. You don't want to fight with people. You just want to be kind. But then people take advantage of you, you know? And then, especially if you love God, you're like, I want to help. But then, and I think Tracy's a good thing is mentioned boundaries. Boundaries are very difficult for people, like even in your body, like for people who come in my trauma group, sometimes when you neglect drawing boundaries, your body start responding to that. I've seen couples where I had this one couple that he didn't have a voice. He couldn't draw his boundaries, and he found himself like clenching when they were in the bathroom brushing teeth, and it's just his body is reacting like he's thinking, I don't hate my wife, but why is my body doing this? Because you refuse to draw boundaries. Now your body is reacting to it. You just withdraw. You get overwhelmed. You just keep quiet. All these are symptoms of not having boundaries, and your body is trying to tell you that you need to do something about this, you know? Yeah, boundaries are heavy. Thank you, Tracy. Anybody else? We have like 2 minutes. If you have your questions, just go ahead and ask before I go. I have the recording. I'm going to send the recording to all of you guys. So I want to thank you so much for coming. I know this is a lunchtime for many of you, and I'm going to do more webinars for the year. So I'm so appreciative of you. Feel free to go to my website and register for the class. If you want to get a heads up, I'll send you the workbook as fast as you register so that we can start your journey. And if you have other questions, please feel free. Check out my women's trauma group for those of you who want to be a part of it. We are meeting this upcoming Monday at 8 p.m. So you're welcome. You could do that also on my website. So again, thank you guys. I'll send you the recording. Have a great day.